Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that's, well, it's deeply complex, highly emotional, and honestly, pretty painful. We're talking about navigating confusing family dynamics, specifically the relationship with a mother who might be exhibiting narcissistic traits. You know, family relationships are foundational. They literally shape how we see the world and ourselves. And when the exact person who's supposed to be your safe harbor becomes a source of complete confusion, wow, that can leave a massive, lasting impact on your life.
So have you ever caught yourself just stopping and asking, wait, is it something I'm doing or is it her? Because so many kids who grow up in these environments go through their entire lives just feeling totally lost. You naturally expect your mom to be this endless source of unconditional nurture and support, right? But when you're met with manipulation or just coldness instead, it's incredibly common to turn that blame inward. You start questioning your own reality, wondering if maybe you're the broken one. If you've ever felt that disconnect, if that hits home for you, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. Chapter 1, is it you or her? To make sense of all this chaos, we're going to break down 10 specific signs across 3 major behavioral clusters to help you finally find some clarity. Let's begin with Chapter 2, Control and Conditional Love. In this first behavioral cluster, we're going to look really closely at the actual mechanics of how a mother with narcissistic traits exerts dominance.
A core concept here is how she actually views her children. She doesn't see them as independent individuals with their own minds. Not at all. Instead, she sees them as extensions of herself, kind of like trophies or pawns on a chessboard. And this dynamic frequently results in 2 very distinct roles within the family. First up, you have the golden child. This child is the favorite, showered with praise, put high on a pedestal, purely because their achievements make mom look good to the outside world. But then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have the scapegoat. This child takes the heat for absolutely everything and faces intense emotional rejection because, well, they supposedly make the mother look bad. She'll literally pit siblings against each other, intentionally creating a rivalry just to manage her own public image and keep everyone desperately vying for her approval.
These hidden expectations translate into some very specific everyday tactics of control. A mother exhibiting these traits demands absolute authority. We're talking about dictating the whole shebang, from who your friends are to the music you listen to, the clothes you wear, even your daily habits. And what happens if you try to disagree or assert a little bit of your own individuality? Oh boy, that's when the manipulation kicks into high gear. She'll use severe emotional blackmail, laying on these incredibly heavy guilt trips to drag you right back into line. She actively punishes any attempt to be your own person, because in her eyes, your independence means you're just less available to serve her needs. She completely weaponizes her affection, turning love into a purely transactional tool.
And this brilliantly illustrates a truly tragic, real-world outcome. Because she uses affection transactionally, children will often be perfectionistic in a misguided attempt to win their mother's love. It just becomes this exhausting, never-ending hamster wheel of trying to prove your worth to someone who only values you based on how well you reflect back on them. Kids in this situation quickly learn a pretty devastating lesson. They feel they have to be absolutely flawless just to earn baseline, basic parental affection.
Which leads us to Chapter 3, the empathy deficit. We're transitioning now from those outward controlling behaviors to the deeper internal psychological deficits that are actually driving all these actions.
A fundamental hallmark of narcissistic traits is a profound, almost unbelievable lack of empathy. I mean, have you ever found yourself trying to share a deeply personal problem with your mom, maybe just looking for a little bit of comfort, only to find the conversation has suddenly almost magically shifted completely back to her? Yeah. Because a person with high narcissistic traits feels the entire world revolves around them, there's literally very little room in their emotional consciousness to even acknowledge anyone else's pain. They are fundamentally unable to sympathize with or validate your feelings. And if they do something that clearly upsets you, well, don't hold your breath waiting for an apology. They rarely acknowledge their mistakes because they genuinely truly believe they can do no wrong.
Now we arrive at Chapter 4, the emotional roller coaster. Living with a mother who exhibits those high control tactics along with deep empathy deficits, that creates a highly volatile, completely unpredictable environment.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it defines a highly manipulative tactic known as love bombing. This is exactly why you never quite know where you stand with her. The affection waxes and wanes so dramatically,
One minute, she's absolutely showering you with intense affection, praise, and attention, which, by the way, usually happens when she wants something from you. But the very second her needs are met or she's doing just fine on her own, you might find yourself completely ignored and just cast aside. This extreme hot and cold behavior is exactly what makes the emotional environment so incredibly destabilizing.
And that unpredictability is tightly bound to some massive emotional swings. It's actually super important to realize that underneath all that bluster and the intense need for control usually lies incredibly low self-esteem. When she meets ongoing resistance from you, she becomes highly volatile. She might get teary, desperate, and somehow even more manipulative. Plus, she's super quick to develop a victim mentality. This means she'll hold on to long-term grudges for days, months, or honestly, even years. She will weaponize your past mistakes against you, using these endless guilt trips to manipulate the current situation and get the upper hand back.
And perhaps the absolute hardest aspect of this emotional roller coaster is this concept right here, codependency. Think about it. Healthy parents raise their kids with the ultimate goal that they'll eventually grow up, become independent, and, leave the nest. But a mother dealing with narcissistic personality traits, she absolutely refuses to let go. She might regularly say things like, "You can't leave me," or "You need me to survive." She'll use every single tactic in the book to keep her child feeling dependent on her well into adulthood, actively sabotaging their ability to live a fully independent life.
Finally, Chapter 5, Moving Forward Safely. If you've been recognizing these patterns today, I know it is a really heavy weight to process. Take a breath, let's shift our focus to how you can actually navigate this constructively.
So, the crucial point is this. Traits do not equal a diagnosis. Exhibiting some of the signs we've discussed today absolutely does not automatically mean your mother has a diagnosable personality disorder, like narcissistic personality disorder. Human behavior exists on a massive spectrum. We're analyzing these traits purely for educational purposes, to help you understand the complex dynamics at play here. But it is incredibly important that we don't use this information to just slap a definitive clinical label on anyone.
If you do feel trapped in this kind of dynamic and you know deep down that you can't safely talk to your mother about her behavior without triggering a whole lot of hostility, here are the actionable steps recommended by our source material. First, as we literally just stressed, do not attempt to self-diagnose or diagnose her yourself. Second, please don't carry this burden alone. Confide in someone you deeply trust, whether that's a close friend or a supportive partner. And third, speak to a professional. Reach out to a GP or a mental health expert. They are specifically trained to help you unpack all of this, establish healthy boundaries, and really guide you toward healing.
Let's wrap up this explainer by reflecting on this really powerful quote from our source. This can be a difficult thing to deal with, not just for you, but for your mother and those around her as well. It's a profound reminder of the massive ripple effect these dynamics have on the entire family system. Yes, it is incredibly painful for you to endure, absolutely. But those behaviors, they're also usually rooted in a deep, often unresolved pain within her. Recognizing these patterns isn't about assigning total blame or harboring endless anger. It's about finding the clarity you need to finally break the cycle. So, what healthy boundaries might you need to set today to protect your own mental peace while still acknowledging the shared, complex difficulty of the whole situation? I'm going to leave you with that question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and please take care of yourself.